I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to be presenting a couple curated tips I have for building and running a CTF. Now, I hadn't really thought about it before I started preparing for this presentation, but I've helped run my fair share of Capture the Flag events. From being a part of a team for an international month-long event to producing a multi-day event at last year's Tech Catalyst Summit pretty much by myself, to hosting simple NetConf instances for small gatherings like this. As I've organized these events, I've picked up a number of tips that help me plan and execute them more efficiently. Thankfully, mostly things I should do, but I've also learned a couple things I shouldn't. Normally, I keep information like this to myself. I don't really think anyone cares. But multiple OWASP presenters asked me to share my knowledge with you, so I'm here now, and you're watching this presentation.
Yay!
I don't really know how to structure a presentation like this, so I'm just going to throw a bunch of tips at you, roughly from most to least obvious. I'm framing these tips in terms of someone doing them all on their own, but they can be adapted for use by a team. So my first and most obvious tip is to be honest with yourself about what you are capable of doing and how much you want to put into an event. Now, I've seen the Pros v. Joes competition at B-Sides Las Vegas. It is sick as hell, and I would love to do something like it here at B-Sides Atlanta. I have also seen the official DEF CON CTF. It is also sick as hell, and I would love to run a top tier event here, something like it, to showcase local elite talent. However, replicating the infrastructure for these events requires equipment I don't have. The events themselves are complex enough to require additional skilled staff I don't have. A suitable space to hold a similar event costs more to reserve than I can afford. And suitably difficult challenges for such an event would require more knowledge to create than I currently have. So instead, I focus on small scale events I can run by myself with the old machines I have in my attic. I combine challenges I find online with a couple ones I create myself. And I host my events in spaces like this, which are cheap or free for me to use. Now, if somebody wants to give me 30 grand to develop and run a top tier regional event, I have no problem going hog wild. But until then, I make do with what I have. So to all of you, my recommendation is to have an honest conversation with yourself about what you can do, what you're willing to do, and how that would affect any event you organize. If all you can or want to dedicate is an hour a week, trying to replicate something like the DEF CON CTF is only going to result in disappointment. It's okay to have lofty goals, but lofty goals with no support leads to frustration and burnout. Ask me how I know. Now, once you've established how much you want to put into an event, my next tip is to figure out what you want participants to get out of your event. This should be your primary focus during the planning stages and should be given thorough consideration to help refine the direction you want your event to take. For example, do you want your event to be more educational and have participants gain some piece of knowledge? Or do you want your event to be more competitive and have participants exhibit skills they've developed elsewhere? Perhaps you want to give participants the chance to perform some neat trick that was recently discovered, like some very recent vulnerability. Maybe you're a company who just wants to show off your new AI-powered zero trust security tool, but you don't want to make it feel like your typical sales pitch. Each of these events wants a different experience for its participants, and therefore will require different strategies to obtain them. But on a related note, you should also figure out what you want to get out of running an event. Do you want to level up your community skills? Do you want to learn how to run events like this? Do you just want something you can talk up on LinkedIn so you sound more important than you actually are? Figuring out what you want as an organizer can help you figure out how much you want to put into it. My next tip is to consider the skill level of your target audience and select your challenges accordingly. As I have mentioned, I would love to run a top-tier event like Pros v Joes or the DEF CON CTF here in Atlanta. But running events like that requires top-tier participants. And the average participant of the events I run is so green, they get drunk texts from Miss Piggy at 2 a.m. Some of my attendees can't write a Kali ISO to a flash drive, much less boot into Kali and use it effectively. So I realized creating or finding more involved or technical challenges would be a waste of my time, and thusly I don't do that. Blindly creating or collecting challenges sounds fun until either half of them go unsolved during the event or someone solves all of them in an hour. For events targeting a more general audience with a greater variance in skill level, I suggest a ratio of 2 easy challenges to 2 intermediate challenges to 1 hard challenge. If your event is targeting high schoolers who don't know how a folder-based directory structure works, you can probably swap the hard challenge with another easy one. But if you're targeting more skilled entrants, you can swap the easy challenges for harder ones. If you don't have an issue with preparing more challenges, and even split between them, like say 2 easy, 2 intermediate, 2 hard, would also be acceptable. But now that the big picture tips are out of the way, it's time to get to the nitty gritty. My next tip is to know what type of CTF you want to run. As I see it, there are 3 main types: Jeopardy style, netcoth, and attack defend. Jeopardy style is the most common CTF type. If you've competed in a CTF before, it was likely this type. And if someone is trying to sell you hosted CTF services, I'm 99% certain you're going to get some flavor of this. As the name suggests, the event structure will roughly resemble a game of Jeopardy. There's going to be a game board composed of multiple categories, and each category will contain challenges of varying difficulty and associated point values. Oh wow, yeah, this screen sucks.
Yeah.
It looks better on my end. Take my word for it. Where was I? Selecting a challenge will reveal the initial information needed to solve it, along with some method to confirm the challenge was solved correctly and award points. There may also be hints to help you solve it more easily. Yeah, this is the most popular type of CTF, primarily due to the ease of running this type of event. And since participant interaction is not a core mechanic, participants can be isolated from each other to minimize interference. However, this isolation does reduce a challenge's impact to a binary of whether or not it's been completed, and gives no reason for a participant to return to a challenge once it has been completed. This is the type of event I would recommend if you wanted to target participants who have never played before or are not that skilled, as the self-contained nature allows participants to direct their focus more narrowly, and the isolation means less experienced participants don't have to fight each other to quote-unquote get on the board. I would also recommend this type of CTF if your event has an educational goal, as the structure of a category can have an implied progression model that can be used to teach participants desired skills. So say the first easy challenge is, you learn how to use strings, and then a medium challenge is you use strings and some other thing to complete a challenge. The next type of CTF, man, this screen really sucks. The next type of CTF is Network King of the Hill, or netcoth for short. In short, netcoth events are structured around a collection of vulnerable machines that are shared across all participants, and a scoring machine that awards points to the participant currently deemed to be, quote-unquote, in control of each machine. Yeah, a little bit. The way the scoring machine determines who is in control can vary, but the standard method is that each vulnerable machine will be running some web server. And every so often, the scoring machine will check the index page of each vulnerable machine's web server for a special tag. This results in a fairly straightforward game loop. Find a vulnerability on a machine, exploit said vulnerability to gain initial access, and find a way to gain enough privileges to add your tag in the right place. This sounds straightforward until you remember netcoth ends in king of the hill. Putting your tag in the right place is the easy part. The hard part is keeping it there while every other participant is trying to remove it. Every participant interacts with the same machines, and there are few rules against interfering with your fellow participants. Maybe they terminate every connection you try to make. Maybe they fix the vulnerability you were using so you have to find another one to gain access. Maybe they use some little known system command to prevent swapping out their tag for yours. This is what gives netcoth events their magic compared to Jeopardy style events. Since participants can attack machines whenever they want, challenges are never finished. Additionally, participant interaction can lead to situations that could be difficult to create from scratch. I believe netcoth fills the happy medium between Jeopardy style and attack defend. It requires slightly more infrastructure than a Jeopardy style event for simple events, but not as much as an attack defend event. The number of machines will generally be lower for netcoth events than there would be challenges in a Jeopardy style event, but each machine can vary in terms of difficulty to gain access and opponents and opportunities to deny your opponent access. Said difficulty can also change during the event depending on the strategies participants use to maintain their presence. Given that success at netcoth requires competently executing the process of hacking, I would recommend netcoth events when your participants have at least low intermediate skill. I think netcoth is the least common type of CTF, largely because there was no easy way to get an instance up and running. However, I have been working on a tool to change this. Yeah, all of these are black because, hackers love black screens and stuff. The last type of CTF is attack defend, which is similar to netcoth, but is much cooler when executed at a high level. Attack defend CTFs can basically be structured however the organizers want, so I'm going to talk about how I've seen it done at Pros v. Joes. Each participant starts with an identical copy of some vulnerable infrastructure. Some critical services, some client devices, some networking equipment. And points are awarded primarily for how well they keep their own infrastructure up and running, but additionally for infiltrating their opponent's infrastructure. This results in participants having two goals: identify and remediate the vulnerabilities in their own infrastructure, that's the defend part, and infiltrate and disrupt the infrastructures of their competitors, that's the attack part. Pros v. Joes also includes a dedicated red team whose job it is to attack all the participants and cause general chaos, but that's not required for an attack defense CTF. But I will admit it does make things a lot more fun. If a Jeopardy style CTF is 12 bar blues with a well-defined structure and clear progression, an attack defend CTF is free jazz. For the organizers, the only limit is your imagination. There is no safety net, and the only protection you have from everything imploding miserably is your own skill. But when it works, it's transcendental. Or not. I don't listen to free jazz, but you get my point. Accordingly, this will require the most capable hardware, since even virtualizing the participants' infrastructure will require some beefy equipment. This is the most realistic form of CTF, and correspondingly has the highest skill for it. So I would only suggest organizing this type of event if participants have high intermediate or advanced skills. Additionally, the primary source of difficulty for participants will be their interactions with each other. So ensuring participants are at least roughly even in terms of skill is most important with this type. You don't want one strong participant steamrolling the others unless you have a red team that can challenge them. My next tip is to not be afraid of stealing challenges from other CTFs for the first few events you organize. When you're running a small event for your friends or your job, nobody's really expecting you to develop a set of entirely custom challenges. And unless your audience regularly competes in other CTFs, there's no way they're going to be able to tell you took a challenge from some other event. Part of running events without burning yourself out is minimizing the effort it takes to run them. And the effort it takes to curate a cohesive collection of challenges is much less than it takes to create them from scratch. With this said, I do recommend creating one challenge in every category if you run a Jeopardy-style event, or create one vulnerable machine yourself if you run an attack, defend, or netcoth event. You don't have to burn yourself out building some ridiculously intricate challenge using some shiny new vulnerability. Putting your own twist on a challenge from some other event is fine when you're trying to learn the ropes. This is somewhat orthogonal to running an event, and remembering what you want to get into and put out of running an event is key. But custom challenges don't just make your event feel a little more special. The process of challenge creation will help you learn about areas of computing you might not normally get to experience. Plus, when you build challenges yourself, you get to pack them full of as much shitposting and memery as your heart desires. My final tip is to decide on what challenge categories you want to use for your event early. This tip is primarily intended for Jeopardy-style events, but netcoth and attack defend events can also apply this tip when selecting vulnerable machines and services to deploy. The first question is whether you want to run a single category event or a multi-category event. As I mentioned previously, multi-category events are optimal if you want an event where participants of varying skill levels can solve challenges and feel good about themselves. But if you're trying to attract all the real CTF sickos, like moths to a flame, there's no better way than a single category event about their special interest. I am reasonably decent at reverse engineering, and I immediately noped out at the thought of a 2-day reverse engineering CTF that popped up on my timeline. I would rather have a root canal than stare at Ghidra's 16 hours a day for a weekend, but if you show me a cryptography-focused CTF where I can get up to all the number theoretic and elliptic curve shenanigans I want, I'm in there like swimwear. So once you've decided to run a multi-category event, the next step is to use the participant's skill level you previously targeted to influence your category choices. If you're targeting a lower skill level, I would recommend less technical categories like trivia or open source intelligence, OSINT for short. If you're targeting a higher skill level, I would recommend more technical categories like reverse engineering or binary exploitation. This is not to say that trivia and OSINT are easy categories, but the average person is far more likely to be able to be given a blurry photo and find out how much that photo's subject paid for their house than they are to have the ability to construct and execute a ROP chain. Theoretically, the imagination of the organizers is the only limit to what categories can be included in a CTF. But in a rough order from least to most sweaty, the most common categories are trivia, which could be a little bit of anything and everything. OSINT, which is essentially professional cyberstalking. Website exploitation, which is fairly self-explanatory. Forensics, which is digging through logs, PCAPs, and memory dumps like a truffle pig. Cryptography, which is abusing number theory to attack the nightmare moon math until you can read everybody's credit card numbers. And reverse engineering / binary exploitation, which I've always felt are two sides to the same coin and are closest to everybody's platonic ideal of hacking. And on that note, I think this is a good place to end my presentation. A lot of the tips I've given you here involve thinking about the type of event you want to run, but all of this thinking can be done in a day. And having a solid idea of the type of event you want to run and who the event is for will let you move so much faster by not second guessing yourself. I also hope this talk helped you realize with a little forethought, you can still put on a respectable event with minimal effort. Like, you saw me hit enter on this screen, and it is building a CTF event in front of you right now. And hopefully when it's done, we'll be able to play on it. But I'm done yapping. If you ever want to come back to this, the QR code links to a blog post version of this talk. If you wanted to talk to me, you can use the URL there. That'll give you all my links. And with that, I guess we can open things up to questions. Let's start with young Breezy in the back.
Well, I think it'd be good to start with, since the script hasn't finished yet, walk through what the script actually does. What does it set up? What are the parts of the netconf?
Yes. So, as I mentioned previously in the talk, I've been working on a tool that basically you give it a Debian machine and it will do everything to set up a netconf instance for you. So basically all you have to do is put Ubuntu on it, put Linux Mint on it or whatever, run the script, put Ubuntu on it, download the challenges you want to use for netconf, run the script will set up the machine for you, and then at the end of it, you just reboot, you run a second script to start up netconf, and it will do all of that for you. Then all you have to do is, connect to the machine, and you'll be off to the races. You should theoretically be able to, like if you wanted to run a netconf event for your friends or whatever, you could theoretically do it in, 15, 20, let's say 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how fast your machine is. This is a potato. If you have a half decent machine, it might take like 10 minutes.
And internet.
And
One more question before I allow everyone else to do their thing, because it's two things are where do you get the challenges from, and then how do you set up like the Wi-Fi component for people to connect to it?
Yes. So in terms of challenges, there are many different places you can go. The one I use primarily is a place called VulnHub. It's a little on the old side. A lot of the machines there are fairly old. However, if you're targeting participants who are new to CTFs, that might be a bit of an advantage because older vulnerable machines will have older exploits, which are more supported by random various hacker tools people want to use because they seem cool. There's another one that I've been looking into. I think it's called hackmyvm.eu. I'm not 100% sure that's the right address, but if you search for like vulnerable VM training or practice or whatever, you'll probably be able to find other sites that hold VMs that you could use in netconf for practice. And in terms of Wi-Fi, the way I have it set up is this machine, the netconf machine only handles netconf stuff. If you want people to connect over like Wi-Fi, you would hook this machine up to an access point, you set up the access point for people to connect to, and then they connect to that, then they connect to the netconf scoreboard and go from there. I do suggest that you keep the netconf machine on an isolated network because you will be running multiple vulnerable machines, and you don't want machines that were vulnerable in 2009 to be internet accessible. Okay. Yes.
So, Jeremy, if someone were to do this for the first time, you feel like they would spend more time in like research, ideation, design, planning phase, or do you think they would spend more time in the actual constructing and building and hands-on keyboard phase to prep for this?
I guess it depends on what type of event they want to run and their budget. So if they want to run something simple and they have some money to spend on it, like CTFD has a managed Jeopardy style service. Like I said, people sell CTF as a service. I think it's like $60 a month. and then you just need it for like 1 month if you're only running it once. So $60 a month, they'll handle all the infrastructure for you. They also provide some challenges, but I think if you want to find more yourself, like that's going to be effort on your part. So, $60 and some time to like look up random challenges, that's fairly low effort. But, if you want something super custom and you want it to look super awesome and you want like a little pew pew map when like people attack each other, so like you could see like this team is attacking this team and you see the pew pews, that's going to take more effort. And then of course there's also, when you get to the event and you're actually running the event, like things always go sideways once you actually get to the event, but depending on how well you've prepped, it depends on how hard things go sideways.
Thank you.
Yeah, they generally, if it's got any number of players at all, like that first hour, that the CTF is open and just let it off the network for Jeopardy style, right? Like all the big ones they have. And they would know, but it doesn't matter because twice as many people show up this year as last year, and then their new build infrastructure still doesn't stand up to it. So that's pretty common. Get all those challenges under your box as soon as you can at the start of the competition so you can work locally.
All right. Any other questions? Yes.
I would love to hear your take on AI. Last year, our team basically had this, I would say little CTF. It was 15 challenges. We did it for the interns. And it was fun. It was web. It was a little bit of OSINT. It had a little bit of everything. We used an open source platform to have like a dashboard and everything. The kids solved it in a matter of hours using ChatGPT and Gemini and stuff like that. So what do you consider are, new trends regarding this situation? I am assuming that even in DEF CON, big competitions, people are solving stuff faster. Yeah. How should we, if we want to host something, what would you do about that?
All right. So I want to clarify. Are you talking about using AI in terms of creating the CTF or using AI in terms of participating in the CTF?
All of it, both.
Well, it's cool to build it. It's easy now. We didn't use it to build it, but we saw this particular scenario. Everybody was using it to solve the challenges, and I think it's okay to use it. It's at the end of the day, it's a tool, right?
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see that players that were very green were solving things pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So in general, I am an AI hater. Like, I've just been so inundated with all the AI bullshit. I'm like, I know there's something there, but so many people have hyped it up that I'm just like, I write all of it off. But with that being said, I think there can be some benefit in using AI to create there's definitely utility in using AI to solve challenges. Like, so if you are concerned about that, I'm not 100% sure on how I would go about solving that. Like, I guess if you could find a way to like poison your challenges in such a way that like AI can't get a grip on them. I don't know exactly how you would do that, but that is a way you could consider. In terms of using AI to create the challenges, I don't know. I think it can be potentially useful, especially since AI gets shit wrong anyway. So like, if you use AI to you just tell AI to make something secure, it's gonna fuck it up anyway. But then you don't really know how AI got it wrong, or you're gonna have to work through the challenge yourself to figure out where AI got it wrong so you can actually use that as a challenge. So you potentially could use something like AI to build your challenges. Probably for simpler challenges, it might be really helpful. I don't know how well I trust it for more complex challenges. I would think that, well, again, I come from the time where people solve these challenges by themselves and didn't ask Claude to do it for them. But I'm like, I would think if I'm a top tier, if like I'm a top tier competitor and like my team's in the DEF CON CTF, like I want to solve these challenges myself because that's more fun to me than letting some LLM do it. Because like, why am I spending, $800 on a plane ticket, $2,000 on hotels and food, and $600 for a DEF CON ticket just to let
To use
an
the
LLM
answer key.
do it for me?
Yeah.
Like I want to do this myself.
I have an answer to that. Like I was at a con, and the guy who created the CTF, there was a whole team. They worked really hard. They gave you, I think it was like 60 questions total. They gave you 30 the first day, and my team was like, okay, let's just play. And like we start getting into it with AI, and we got an answer to a flag that was for the next day. And he went and found us and he was like, how did you get this answer? And he was really upset that we were using AI and that he didn't stress test the system with AI. And then we answered all of the questions, and I could tell that he was like, he put a lot of passion and energy into all of the, and being intentional of how everything kind of built together through the process. And he felt like we kind of like took a cheat sheet to it, which I get, but at the same time we were like, but that's what hackers do. It's like, so the good news is he's gonna do one next year that's like, you can't use AI for all. But I think if you're beginning, AI is a great tool. It's not, at least from my experience, it's not just giving you the answer, it's explaining how it got there. And so that was helpful for me. Like one of the things was like hacking into a router, which I had never done before. And the whole syntax is different. So I learned a lot with it, but
Yeah,
it's just my
I'm
answer.
with him and these organizers. We felt like that a little bit because it took a few weeks to build.
Yeah.
Make it look cool, and the kids were solving this in a matter of hours. But hopefully, the people that are using AI to do this, to fix and to solve the challenges, also doing the read up, learning, and okay, how did AI actually crack this out? I see it like that, like learn from it, not just copy paste, because otherwise you're not learning. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're organizing a CTF, I always love the aspect of like hidden message. I mean, because you want to do prompt injections, you want to also like be adversarial to the AI. So like, well, just using it straight off the bat, you can lead them down the wrong path and build in instructions
Yeah.
into your CTFs.
Or there's like an AI section specifically. You two have thoughts?
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah, I think if you're hosting a CTF and you're worried about, you don't want people to use AI, I think you should run all of your challenges through AI trying to solve them.
Yep.
And see how easy that is, and then basically start to go out of your way, right? Like make them more difficult. I think one of the things, I don't know if you guys followed AIXCC, it's the big DARPA automated, cyber reasoning system that were autonomously hacking challenges and stuff. And one of the there's just a paper recently that kind of summed it up. And one of the challenges that these systems have is if there's a simple bug, they can't find the complicated bug. They get fixated. So put some stuff in there that's simple but doesn't, isn't quite exploitable, and the AI will sit there spinning its wheels, trying to exploit a stack overflow or something like that, right? Like some stir copy, but the stack is not executable and ROP is disabled and all this stuff, and it'll just go crazy while there's a heap overflow on the other end. That's what you're trying to get people to find, right? But if you're going to be disappointed when people use AI, then that's just got to be part of your build. You got to run it through Opus and say, hey, Opus, man, do your best. And let me know how easy this is to solve.
That's good.
Yeah, the last few that I've done, they just assume that everyone's using AI, and you can, if you treat the AI as a participant, whenever you're building it, you can see the way that the AI is thinking. If you understand how the AI approaches the challenge, you can rebuild the challenge to where it's going to trip it up. A lot of things are also specific date and time that I've seen, a lot of the OSINT, so AI is not trained on everything across the internet, so sometimes it'll point you in the wrong direction when really you should be looking for this particular thing in the Internet Archive or something, but it's looking at something more recent or older. So if you get something that's as recent as possible, maybe the AI hasn't been trained on it yet. So you just, I think you have to, if you don't want people to use AI, you have to track their, like, how they are actually using it and provide, like, negatives. Say, okay, well, you're kicked out if you can use AI. Otherwise, I think you need to just assume that they're going to use it.
I've seen it where it's like the harder questions, and there's open AIs, like I can't teach you how to hack, you know. It has its own guardrails, so it's like, I understand you're in a CTF, but I'm not gonna do that. So, I see how that would be true.
I think you could also, like, you could, at the very least, without any real extra effort, just do an honor system and say, look, if you're gonna use AI, you're in the AI class. And if you're gonna do it all human, then there's like an all human group, and we'll just categorize our users, right? Like, there's the people who swore they weren't gonna use AI, and there's the people who didn't use AI. And maybe some people will cheat, and maybe that'll be obvious. Maybe it won't, you never know, but it gives people the opportunity to be honest and to compete on the field that they want to compete on.
Is there like a go-to like hacker AI? Like if there was a nefarious entity out there trying to use AI in a nefarious way, is there like a better LLM or a better foundational model to use for that?
Worm GPT,
Worm GPT.
I think. Let me double check.
Like WORM.
If you go on Curated and look for models that are obliterated.
Obliterated.
Obliterated, yeah, or Josified, those models have been fine-tuned and trained to have their safety controls removed.
Wow.
Worm GPT
That's
has
exactly
no
what
guardrails.
It was called obliterated, and what was the other one?
Obliterated with an A. Josified, Josified, those are the two terms of art in removing safety controls from downloadable models. So those are models we run on your computer. Honestly, in CTF, and I don't know, at some point I must have told Claude what I do, because it's like, well, since you're an AppSec guy, like, here's how to exploit that.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, cool, man, thanks, Claude. Yeah, it will absolutely help you out if it thinks that that's your job.
It doesn't know my job. It's like, some days it's like, yeah, I know that you're into this, and the other days it's like, you're into it, and the answer is still, I'm not gonna help you.
There's just a news story about Fortinet's gateway getting hacked.
Yeah,
It was a press release on Anthropic. And they were like, oh, you know, some attacker used Claude to break into 600 firewalls. Like, okay.
To be fair, a college sophomore can hack into Fortinet. Like, that's not really saying much.
No, it's not.
are you gonna switch this?
Something to chime in around.
Well, it's not done building yet.
One thing I want to chime in around, because I have to plug in OWASP, is the OWASP Gen AI project. That outlines actually a lot of these tools and resources, what to do, all this sort of stuff. And also guides, and even CTF, so they actually have like built a CTF that you can like spin up and do stuff.
They just released a buyer's guide for AI red teaming. So if you're building like